Battlestar Galactica Season 3 is finally over, but we have to go fracking down the hatch here on RHAP. We know scripted TV. We know you've been waiting a very long time for our coverage of the two-part Season 3 finale of Battlestar Galactica. We appreciate your patience. You waited longer than we did for a certain character to come back to the show. And certainly, I'm very excited to dig into all of this. I have been waiting a very, very, very long time to have the conversation that I am about to have with my co-host, who had, up until now, had no idea who the final 4 of 5 Sylons are. And now we can have a very big conversation all about it. I'm Josh Wigler. He's Mike Bloom. Mike Bloom, I think that's the spoiler alert for all the people.
Yes, but Josh, I've got a little bit of a mystery solver for you as well, because yes, we did find out 4 of the final 5, but I did a little bit of digging on my own, and I found the 5th one.
Okay.
And I'd like to introduce you to him.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, Mike Bloom has put on glasses.
Hey, Josh, it's me, Bob Sylon.
It's Bob Sylon.
Bob Sylon. That's me. I'm the last one.
Okay, so for people who don't know, Mike Bloom, if you're not watching a video, Mike Bloom has just put on sunglasses and has picked up an acoustic guitar.
Yep, that's me. Bob Sylon at your service.
Do you have a song you're about to perform?
Should I try one? Yeah. Let's see. How many jumps does it take to get to Earth? If you are the fleet of the humans. Thank you. That was one of my latest hits. Thank you.
Oh my God.
That's right. It was me. I'm behind it all along.
Bob Sylon.
Yep.
Not to spoil it. Bob Dylan, not the 5th Sylon. Bob Dylan, Sylon God? Maybe.
That's what I'm saying. Listen, they say the best way for free publicity is to broadcast in the minds of your acolytes.
That's right.
I pay nothing, Josh. No expense occurred.
This is sort of what we do. I
don't have a harmonica. We use panpipes on the Sylon planet.
Is that a panpipe that you're... This is an Asher toy.
They're all on the same tone, because that's the only tone I need,
Wait, can you hold up the little panpipe again? You got a blue, a red, a green, and a yellow. There's 4 of them.
There we go. Exactly. Everything to code. Everything part of the code, because it's all wires and bolts underneath this beautiful musical structure, my friend.
Now, I got to be honest. I was really hoping that what was about to happen is you were about to come on here rip-roaring, tearing through all along the Watchtower, and that this had been a secret assignment of yours across 3 seasons of Battlestar Galactica, and you had secretly been learning guitar behind my back just to pull this off.
Well, listen, we still got one more season, don't we? Still got a capper of an album for you there, Josh.
Do you think it's possible that within the span of a hiatus, which we're going to take on the other side of Season 3, and then a full 20-episode final season, that you could learn how to rip all along the Watchtower?
I already know it, Josh. It's me, Bob Sylon. I invented the damn sport of music.
It's not a sport, Bob.
Well, it is to me. Listen, they may have Pyramid, but over here on Earth, I've got this little thing. We call it tickling the 6-string mistress.
Is that what we call it? We call it tickling the 6-string mistress?
Oh, boy, Josh. All the conversations I have around the fires with all my other Sylons, you die for them. Listen, our plans may seem illogical. At some points, they might sound contradictory, but that's all part of the poetry, my friend. That's all part of the journey. I apologize. I would prepare something. I did have a biopic come out for me at a certain point.
Yes.
Starring Timothy Sylon May.
Yeah, Timothy Sylon. Yeah. Did you see it? Did you like it?
Did not enjoy. Absolutely not. Not enough red-hot vertebrae when we're engaged in the carnal act.
Yeah.
When I'm tickling a very different stringed mistress, if you catch my drift.
I do catch your drift. All right, Bob Sylon. Next time I see you, I certainly I hope to hear a riveting rendition of All Along the Watchtower.
There's a lot of rivets in me, Josh, so that's a default.
Oh my gosh, terrifying.
I am a robot.
Bob Sylon, ribbed for your pleasure here on Down the Hatch.
Thank you. Wow,
Thank
Josh.
you.
Look at this. I even had a surprise for you.
Wow.
Who's to say that you're the one that's in the know about everything? I
Oh,
found out the
man.
identity of the last Sylon.
Well, Mike Bloom, let me ask you, have you been aware that Bob Sylon has been with us the entire time?
Who is Bob Sylon?
Well, Bob Sylon was based on Bob Dylan, right?
Oh, I mean, I heard of him. Did he possess my spirit for a brief second? Am I a Sylon?
Briefly, for a brief moment. Mike Bloom, are you aware? Well, I guess technically Bob Dylan hasn't been with Battlestar Galactica Down the Hatch the entirety of our run thus far. Jimi Hendrix has. Jimi Hendrix has been with us since the miniseries of Battlestar Galactica in every single episode of Down the Hatch. And Bob Dylan came to the party a little late. Because
as he wants to be.
Myself and the team behind the curtain, it took us an entire season to be like, you know what? Do you know who actually wrote All Along the Watchtower is Bob Dylan, and maybe who popularized it is Jimi Hendrix. So Bob Dylan joined the party during our season 1 in review special. Mike Bloom, for every single episode of Down the Hatch, Battlestar Galactica, I have had the Sylon level assignment of sneaking in a title to a Jimi Hendrix song into every single one of these podcasts thus far.
And I imagine it took you no ounce of effort considering your encyclopedic knowledge of the oeuvre of one Jimi Hendrix, right? Just listen him right off the Rolodex.
And then realizing that we, like the Bob Dylan stands, including Bob Sylon, would freak out if this was ever revealed, and then someone would be like, but it was actually Bob Dylan!
Don't let that man infringe on my work!
We went back, and for that season 1 in review shows, we were counting through all of the episodes of season 1 of Battlestar Galactica. For each one of those brief interstitials, I snuck in a Bob Dylan song title. So if you go back through the entirety of Down the Hatch, you will hear, give me an episode that you want to know what I snuck in.
Okay, so this is from any episode, right?
Anything. Okay. The Dylans don't start until Valley of Darkness. Until Scattered.
Okay, then let's listen. We're gonna hear a lot about Ellen Ty this episode. Give me Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down.
All right, Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down. Wait Until Tomorrow was the Jimi Hendrix song. There was no Dylan there. Let's see. We had for I think a good one is Downloaded.
Okay.
Where Death Is Not the End was the Bob Dylan song that I got in here. But the Jimi Hendrix that I had to get in for Downloaded was The Stars That Play While Laughing Sam's Dice.
Is that a song title?
The Stars That Play with Laughing Sam's Dice. And I think that I created some sort of fictional scenario where Sam Anders was a gambler called Laughing Sam. So I had to really reach for that one.
Oh my God!
That was pretty hard. Let's see. What was another one that was kind of tough? Oh, last week's The Sun Also Rises, yes. Mike Bloom. You ready?
Uh-huh.
Here's the Jimi Hendrix. Woodstock Improvisation. Bob Dylan was Clothesline Saga. If you'll recall those activation words, Woodstock, Improvisation, Clothesline, Saga.
So were those referring to the artist, but those are the names of songs?
Yeah, those are 2 separate songs, and that's how I got my Dylan and Hendrix in the
See, I was working through the significance of them. Is this the cell block tango of teasers where it's like, okay, Woodstock, Bob Dylan obviously wrote the song while he was at Woodstock. Improvise. Lee literally says in his big speech, you have to improvise. And I'm like, clothesline? I guess Laura Roslin did get clotheslined by her cancer diagnosis, metaphorically.
Mike, so through 3 seasons and a miniseries of Battlestar Galactica, you have been inundated with Jimi Hendrix song titles and less so, but still to a large degree, Bob Dylan song titles. And you did not activate. I think we can confirm Mike Bloom, not a Sylon.
I feel.
Do you feel good?
No, I want to apologize to humanity because I mean, like that's. Listen,
It's
I'm
an
sort of a
indictment on
net
our people.
negative for the final result. So whoever I'm team I'm on, much like getting picked, in a schoolyard pick'em in elementary school, was essentially an auto L. I mean, listen, if you were gonna throw out a bunch of Jimi Hendrix titles, you picked the right guy who is going to go in one ear and out the other, because I cannot say I have studied up well on the man. Did you say Purple Haze at all?
I don't know. I think Purple Haze got in here somewhere. Where was Purple Haze? Let's find out. Purple Haze. You know what? Purple Haze never showed up. We never did Purple Haze.
That's like the #1 Family Feud Jimi Hendrix song.
You would think so. Yeah. We did.
Well, the Nebula is a bit of a Purple Haze by the end of this episode.
There was 1 week for collaborators where my Hendrix was shame, shame, shame. But the great team, ding, 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 but the great team behind the curtain, Ben and Brendan, who helped in a document called Hendrix Dylan Progress, which I've had open.
That sounds like something out of Severance. Like, how goes the Hendrix Dylan progress?
Yeah, throughout the course of Down the Hatch Battlestar Galactica, it was written as Shane, shame, shame, and I couldn't reach them in time to confirm or deny, and I was doing this on the fly, so I believe on that podcast I said it, I think I said Shane, shame, shame. I'm sorry, I mean shame, shame, shames, just to cover my bases, just to make sure.
I love this podcast so much. This honestly means so much to me that you're like, all right, there's enough of a hook of this idiot making a bunch of predictions that I will just a little bit of tappy tap on the back. That's some wound up a little correct here, but at the same time, you're doing some for me and you're doing some for you at the same time, throwing in all these Easter eggs. I have so much kudos to you and the team behind the curtain for becoming avowed scholars of the work of one Mr. Hendrix to keep this runner going. I salute you.
Now, there was a world where we were going to keep this going into season 4, but I said, I'm done. I'm done. I need one less tab open on my browser. That's a lot that I'm working through here to make Down the Hatch possible through the pneumatic tubes and into your ears. I'm done. I am right now Xing out of Hendrix Dylan Progress for the last time. It's done. It's closed. It's closed.
Should I pick up in your stead?
Sure.
Okay, I'll do it.
But I don't know that I'll. I feel like now I'm a big Hendrix head. I'm not. You'll get him past me as well.
I was gonna say now the shoe is on the other foot. Now the hunter has become the hunter.
Past me through season 4. I think that's fun. Let's have it be you this time around.
I mean, what makes you think that tickling the 6-stringed mistress was not the name of a
I'm not positive that you aren't also working on a bit. I think it is entirely possible that there is some sort of Cylon sleeper assignment that Mike has been issued that I am not yet privy to, because that is the way that the team behind the curtain here works on Down the Hatch. A sick squad. Mike, we have made it almost 15 minutes into the podcast, and we have had bits and reveals. We've talked about the inclusion of All Along the Watchtower canonically exists in the lore of Battlestar Galactica, but we have not yet talked about why. And I think, as we have already broken format a bit, I am increasingly feeling like I think that this podcast is going to end up being a format breaker. I don't think that we are going to end up doing the beat by beat recap here, because there's just like too many things that I'm like popped off about that I'm too excited to talk to you about, that I just need to get through them one at a time. I want to talk about the fact that you had some predictions coming in to Crossroads, part 1 and 2. I'm going to go back over them with you real quick.
Okay, let's do it.
Prediction 1 was that you expected there to be an Adama reconciliation between Bill and Lee. Did we get that?
I mean, not literally like the "I forgive you, son, hug it out," but like Bill Adama does side with Lee at the end of the day, does listen to his son's impassioned argument on the stand. And listen, Lee does take off in the Viper, and Adama's not like, shoot him down. He's the enemy.
Gaius Baltar, guilty but escapes, was another one of your predictions. Is that what happened?
I mean, as you know, what we talked about, he's not guilty of the crime that he is ultimately acquitted for, but he is a guilty man. But yeah, he does get squirreled away at the end of the day. Not to say that like it's almost the opposite outcome where he's not guilty, but he's still under siege and he still escapes. So I would say 50% on that one.
Okay, your next prediction was the Sylons will return. But really, they waited a long time.
Yeah, but sitting on their duffs for the better part of the second half of the season. What was going on there?
You also predicted, and tell me if this is written down correctly. You said we will get at least one Sylon outed. We will go into season 4 with a final 4, not a final 5. Does that sound like your prediction, Mike Bloom?
Swish, baby! 3 points! Yes! It was, I knew that we'd have at least one Sylon reveal, but I knew that they would leave at least a little bit on the table of the final 5. So I said, at most, we would get a final 4. And Josh, my math is sometimes not mathing, but I do believe we got 4 out of the final 5. And I had the last piece of the puzzle. I gave you the 5th one.
You gave us the 5th one, so spoilers, Bob Sylon for season 5 for season 4 of Battlestar Galactica. Mike, I want to now put a pin in this because you have a couple of other predictions about the season 3 finale specifically, but we now have to revisit your final Sylon predictions of who you thought the final 5 Sylons would be, and I'm not going to go through them in the order that you named them. I will go through them in the order in which you got it wrong. Romo Lampkin, you thought perhaps a Sylon was one of your final predictions.
I mean, still all this is to say, it still could happen. There's still one final reveal.
Still possible.
I mean, had a hell of a finale, even more than the other 4 Sylons. So I would love it. I would personally love for it to happen, but not a confirmed Sylon as of yet.
Not a confirmed Sylon as of yet is a great way of rephrasing it. Anastasia Duala was also on your list as a Sylon, not revealed in this episode, if that ends up being the case.
Yeah, but listen, she is on the outs with her marriage, so maybe single life allows her to showcase her new identity in multiple ways.
Felix Gaeta, I think, has been the Sylon on your Dreidis the longest. Going back to season 1, I think one of your earliest predictions, Gaeta is a Sylon. If that's the case, not revealed yet.
No, I think for me in this finale, it's confirmed that he's not a Sylon, but he is a piece of shit. That's a bad look, Gaeta. That's a really freaking bad look. Like
lying on the stand.
Yeah, lying on the stand, like especially after you try to murder this man, you're like, all right, by any means possible. I mean, we just saw with Adama here. Do you really think by any means possible is going to hold up as a salient argument in a court of law? It was a bad look from Gaeta, who I'm not gonna say I'm losing respect for, but like this guy
is Gaeta like the reverse sloppy steak. Instead of I used to be a piece of shit, I'm gonna be a piece of shit.
I mean, we found out this guy was a bit of a porn freak at the beginning of the series. Like he never was a squeaky clean person, but and maybe through his own mental calculus, he's trying to sort of cleanse himself of his own sins by being like, listen, if I fudge the truth a little bit about Gaius Baltar, that will surely help the results, right? When clearly, as we'll talk about, the grand message of this finale, if not maybe one of the grand messages of the whole series, is like, you gotta do bad things to get good outcomes, but not a lot of that should involve actively lying under oath to try to throw somebody under the bus for like the one thing they didn't do.
All right. Going into the finale, you had a prediction previously that you pulled from the board in favor of someone we have not yet met. The person who you pulled from the board, as well as your other prediction, have borne out to be 2 of the final 5 Sylons. You had him in your sights for most of season 3. He was wondering at the end of season 2 if he was a Sylon. He gets the line in this episode, "We're Sylons, and we have been all this time." Chief Galen Tyrrell is a confirmed Sylon, Mike Bloom, as is the woman you took off the board, Tori.
I'm counting it. I'm counting it. If it's been named before.
Nope.
Yep.
Her.
Yes. No. Get out of here with this bull honky Josh Wigler. I said the name. I took the shot in the dark. I don't care if I pulled the name. I said it at some point. That should count for something. You owe me! Josh, you owe me! I owe you 42 goddamn episodes saying they were going to frack, and then the next episode, you owe me, you son of a bitch. Give this to me.
No, you got it. You got it with the fracking. You lose it here.
No, I
Didn't
deny
have
your
the courage
truth
of
and
your
substitute
convictions.
my own, my friend.
You didn't have the courage of your convictions. You
Nope,
walked away
nope.
from the path.
My convictions were speaking to it. I was just having my cake and eating it too by being like, let's throw a little 6 in there as well.
I don't think that counts.
6
I don't
is a
think
great
that counts.
number.
You pulled Tori from the list.
Mm-hmm.
You were so close.
Did I?
Yeah, I think we have.
I think it should still count that I picked of all people Tori at some point. That should be acknowledged at some point. That's
fair.
what I'm saying. That's
fair. That's fair. But as far as an official prediction, you pulled her in the 11th hour.
Well, the official prediction can suck my butthole.
Oh my God. Okay. Well,
I'm fired up, Josh. You got me screaming. I am going to the grave on this. I don't do a lot of things correct in my life, so I'm trying to stake my claim right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but you on the record in the podcast feed, the podcast episode, the people who are listening to this one have also listened to already. You pulled Tori from it. We were all like, "Oh man, Mike, you were right there."
Yeah, so you're rooting for me, so give it to me.
We were rooting for you.
There we go. The emotional support. Listen,
you have an emotional victory, but a literal loss in this case.
I'll take that. Listen, I'll take the emotional victory.
Mike Bloom.
A win's a win.
Let me tell you who else are confirmed Sylons in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
One who has been sort of your Carl Agathon of the last little while. We had our eyes on many different people across this show. I think once upon a time, when this character was introduced, you briefly meditated on, could this be a Sylon? I feel like it's going to be a little boring if this guy is a Sylon. For a long time, seemed like he was just another vanilla milquetoast part of the fleet. A couple of episodes ago, when Starbuck is taken off the board, very briefly, I said, don't worry, the Sam story is actually going to get real interesting. Well, it just got real interesting. Sam Anders is a confirmed Sylon.
Okay.
Confirmed Sylon, Sam Anders.
Fine. I guess there's gotta be a little glass of milk for every meal that we have.
He's the fine over Tori.
Yeah, because Tori at least has some mystery around her that intrigues me. Sam Anders has been sitting here like a wet sock drying in the sun for the better part of 3 seasons, and it hasn't dried yet, in my opinion.
I don't want to talk about why that sock might be wet.
I guess I'm intrigued by this, but I still don't know what the show wants me to feel about him. Like, we barely know anything about the guy. We've been there, barely know anything. The most interesting thing about him was the first thing we were introduced to, which is like, ooh, here's this captain of sports who has to learn how to, become a resistance fighter. And like, honestly, his character got more whitewashed as the series went along because he was just kind of used as a tool in a love triangle / quadrangle. So
love pyramid.
Yeah, so like, sure, I guess I'm happier to find out more about this character because the baseline was nothing. But even still, in this episode, he's fracking around with Tori, and I'm like, okay, where did this come from? Yes, another notch push pin on the board of the great enigma that is Sam Anders, except it's a board that I don't really care to necessarily look at. So I guess I'll take an excuse to become more interested in him, but the bar's a little low right now.
Let's talk about somebody who loves a bar. And let's talk about the 4th of 4 Sylons confirmed, revealed in this episode. One that I had been really tracking to see if you had any sort of heat on. And I don't think you ever really did.
No, the closest he got to a Sylon was one sitting on his face.
That's what you always said. That's right. My favorite character, Saltai, is a confirmed Sylon, Mike Bloom.
Yeah, this one is almost makes up for Anders, and that like this is the really fun one to noodle around, right? Because of the 4 that have been revealed, Tori, we don't really know anything about her. Anders, we only know a smidge more than nothing. Tyrell was the one that, to your point, I had sort of been going to bat for the longest time. So this wasn't exactly like a huge jaw-dropping prediction.
Are you trying to drop Billy Joel's in here? Because I caught for the longest time.
Damn it, you got me. And then Saltai coming in from the top rope as a Sylon. That was such a freaking good twist that, we were talking for a while, ever since Leo had been whispered into Rosalind's ear, like Adama is a Sylon, this idea of, oh, what would happen if the Sylons did have somebody among the higher ups of the fleet as working among them. No, again, with Sylons, it's always a little weird because it seems like Sultai was a sleeper agent, had no idea he was a Sylon. So it's not like he was purposely a plant conducting all this Sylon subterfuge, though ironically enough, he's going to accuse Adama of there being some aboard. But I mean, if we're going to look at a character who is like so incredibly pained by what the Cylons have done for him and done to him and make him a Cylon in turn, that makes things so deliciously complicated.
Let me also observe something that I went to great pains to point out along the way in the early going of season 3 specifically. Who were the 3 leaders of the human resistance against the Cylons on New Caprica? Colonel Ty, Sam Anders, Chief Tyrrell. And like Tori is like sort of somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, Rosalind was sort of like, she wasn't a main leader, but she was certainly an important part of it, and Tori was alongside her, which is, like, makes me appreciate and also kind of bemoan the Cylons simultaneously, because it's like, on the one hand, perfect, this is a way to keep tabs on your enemy, assumingly they've got a little, like, Find My app for all the Cylons. So again, the Cylons don't know who the final 5 are, so I'm talking about, like, capital C Cylons. I'm talking about, like, the Cylon hive mind. They're able to sort of get tabs on the opposition. On the other hand, if you knew that they were part of this, huge resistance that is killing people and disrupting the peace, do you let them get that far? That's where I think things fall apart for me a little bit, Josh. And we'll get into this more in season 4. This idea of like the Cylons have a grand master plan and certain things must happen at certain points in time in order to get to a final destination. I've never liked that trope.
Yeah.
I always feel like, A, from a tactical perspective, it stands a chance of getting mucked up almost immediately by, small decisions that are made in the moment. And B, it just kind of feels like, I don't know, it almost makes us feel a little powerless, not only the characters, but the audience, and being like, okay, well, we thought this fun thing happened, but it turns out everything happened for a reason, and the outcome was determined anyway. Like, it seems a little fatalistic from a plot perspective, but I would say on the surface, very fun to have this idea of the illusion of free will, that 3 of the people that were the ones leading the charge to destroy the Cylon occupation on New Caprica were Cylons themselves. Have them feel in a really weird way. I mean, even looking at someone like Anders, right, who has been fighting Cylons since basically the beginning of the series firsthand. That's literally all we know about the character, and his entire existence is a lie at this point. Maybe the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm like, maybe there's something here, because at least now we can rewrite everything that I don't care about with this character and actually build something new.
I think also, by the way, worth pointing out that you are like a half hour, like maybe an hour removed from finishing the episode right now.
Yeah, a lot of scattered thoughts. I apologize for the screaming. My emotions are all over the place.
That's part of why I feel like we have to do the episode this way, because there's just like, this is to say that this is like, this is sort of the we have to go back. I think
that makes sense.
Battlestar Galactica.
It's another season 3 finale. Yeah,
and like we haven't even talked about Starbuck has to come back, right? Like we haven't even like talked about that piece of this yet. But so many crazy things happen here in these final moments of season 3 of Battlestar Galactica. Out of nowhere, the Cylons are back, but much more importantly, 4 of the 5 final Cylons are identified, and who knows what the hell is going on with Starbuck as well. Like very, very, very major revelations happen here. And I don't think that there has been a thing on this show that I have anticipated your reaction to more than what we just got through. So to have you come right onto the podcast, so popped off and so hot,
coming in hot,
is exactly how it's supposed to be. So talk me through the emotional journey of getting from the beginning of Crossroads to the end of Crossroads, which again, we also said Bone Thugs and Harmony asked me about that later. I think that Bone Thugs and Harmony actually well represents these 4 of the 5 final 5 Cylons. I think Bone is Tori because she just boned Anders.
Takes 2 to bone, though.
I think Thugs is Chief Tyrrell as like the grunt of the crew.
Okay.
And is Anders.
and harmony is,
And I
yes,
think
of course, the representation of harmony, Saul Ty.
he's been Harm and I. So when we said it, I was like, oh, it's actually all. I think it's all right there. You could swap Anders and Tori's spots too, because Anders bones a lot, and Tori to me is kind of the one that's like
Oh, that's
her,
literally what we were talking about last time, right? Of like,
you know?
like this is the Ann Peggy, right? Of like, okay, sure,
Her?
she could come along too. Yeah. So,
Mike, there was a reason why I wanted to talk about these two episodes in a single shot, because my thought would have been that across the first hour of this 2-part finale, if we had like a full podcast to stop down and talk about it, you're a savvy TV viewer, and I suspect you had a hunch of some of what was going on.
yeah, so if we're talking about my own journey, specifically through this revelation, we'll talk about the courtroom stuff later, which is to say, let me get into my opinion 30 minutes into this episode. This was a sensational episode of television.
Yes.
And so there
A
were
clean
so many
4.2.
Yes, if I could give it a 4.3, I would. That's how good it was.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this revelation itself, I mean, yeah, as soon as specifically there's a moment when like Anders and Tori lock eyes in the bar when the music's playing, I'm like, are they Sylons? Is this their like secret communicator hailing song for them all to get together? And then of course, when I hear Chief Tyrrell humming that tune in the middle of the night, I'm like, there we go, folks. There's the smoking gun. We have finally arrived at this point. I mean, obviously there are revelations to be beheld in each one of these sort of scrounging up their identity and realizing that they're Sylon. I imagine we're going to deal with this a lot more in season 4, which I'm very intrigued to see how it's executed. Because, like, I feel like if one of these characters we got this journey from, that would be enough. 4 might be a lot. If we're dealing with 4 different people having 4 separate reconciliation moments about their identity, especially in a final season where you have to wrap up all these different things, it can be a little overweening. But what I was so intrigued by, Josh, was not what when they were brought to this final place, but what brought them there. Because this is a huge rarity for Battlestar Galactica. Bear McCreary takes the episode off. Here we have
Bear McCreary jams out with a crazy version of
I should say that like his original score though, he can jam out on covers much like we all did back in the dorms, but that was such an intriguing choice to me, is having like an actual westernized song with lyrics as the calling card, and B, having it be Bob Dylan's All Along the Watchtower. And I have a few thoughts about this that might tie into some stuff leading into season 4.
Yeah.
Because I think that, again, this was really weird for sci-fi. Of course, back in Star Trek, Jessica Leeds and I always make the joke that, like, for some reason, people in the 24th century are obsessed with things from, like, the 20th century of, like, Jean-Luc Picard loves riding horses, what's his name from Enterprise, loves fixing cars. And it's like, really nothing developed in the years in between that aren't a part of our human history for you to obsess yourselves over. Battlestar Galactica is different. These people lived in colonies. They did not have experience with Bob Dylan or anything like that. So again, it's very, very strange for an authentic piece of pop culture to make its way from the airwaves and serve as this call to action for these Cylons, which does, for me, solidify one of the theories I've had since the very beginning, which is that Earth is a Cylon planet, that the Cylons have found some sort of way to settle in on Earth, and they're using these sort of like cultural touchstones, and that actually, you have Anders and Tyrrell talk about how, it's a melody that I remember, but I can't place. We don't have Shazam readily available. It's like something from childhood.
Yeah.
I would say, Josh, big twist. I think Earth is the Cylon home planet.
Okay.
I think that this is where all the Cylons have been born and raised. And then who knows, maybe when the Cylons and humanity both arrive there at the same time, to be like, haha, this is our place to conquer. It's like, oh, this is actually the one place where Cylons and humans live together in harmony. Look at what you sons of bitches. Exactly. Look what you sons of bitches were doing. So to me, that indicates that Earth, and I'm going to be very intrigued to see like what pop culture references. Is this place permanently stuck in 1960 something? Was it updated for what the sign of the times were for like the mid 2000s? Are we going to see Starbuck and Lee walking around in 2007? I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah,
but
she comes like, Lee, I've been to Earth. I know how to get there. They've got like sick music. Have you ever heard of Weezer before?
exactly. Lee, you wouldn't believe it. There's a store named after me, and there's
Yeah,
one everywhere.
it's
There's no
everywhere.
Cylon Starbuck, but there's Starbucks that outnumber them.
There's
So,
also Lee's. It's a clothing supply. It's mostly jeans.
and you could use some because where's your uniform? But I that's what I've sort of ruminating around as to why are we using, a very different piece of music as a calling card for them. The other thing is
There's also
Bob
ties. They've got a lot of ties. That's what they call those things that we've been wrapping around our necks.
exactly.
They've got a different sport. It's called football. There's a team called the Chiefs. Everybody's represented.
And you're not gonna believe it, Lee. They've got corners on everything.
Corners everywhere.
I don't understand it.
Yeah, Lee's like, what's a corner?
But I think even just turning towards the meaning of the song, I think was a very fun choice. Now, whether this was purposeful on behalf of Sylon, Frog God, or not, just the choice of All Along the Watchtower, because there's been a lot of interpretations as to what the song means, but the lyrics themselves tells the story of two people, the Joker and the Trickster. And the Joker is kind of bemoaning the fact, right, that they are quite literally the laughing stock of their, I don't know, kingdom, whatever society they live in, that there are those who sit in the watchtower, who look down on them from above, who subjugate them to doing things for their amusement, and it makes them feel lesser than. Some even say that Bob Dylan may have written this song as sort of like a big FU to his producers at the time, who he was having some feelings about. What better way to sort of describe what caused the Cylon uprising in the first place, right? It was like, you created us, you made us the jokers of your kingdom, but now the deck has turned and we are stacking things against you. It's time that watchtower fall.
Yeah. Mike, you mentioned that maybe it was some sort of big FU to the producers. There were some big FU to the producers from some of the people at the table read for the finale of this episode. I think that I mentioned previously that there had been some drama. The story goes, and this could be hearsay, Mike, that the hairless one, Michael Hogan, who plays Colonel Ty, was fracking pissed to find out that he was a Cylon. And I think over time, like, came to feel like that is like the appropriate reaction. That Ty, of all of them, is the first one basically to say, like, whatever else I am, whoever else I am the XO of this ship, and I've got a job to do. And he goes, and like anything to not have to deal with his reality, which has kind of been Ty's MO for much of the show. But I didn't want to forget that story because I think that there were a lot of emotions. It was a very hot thing among the people who make this show to have this big reveal, to have it finally out there. There was some clandestine secret keeping involved that some of the secrets, the vault on some of these secrets, not quite as tight as the secret vault here on Down the Hatch.
Really?
Aaron Douglas, Michael Trucco, who plays Anders, Aaron Douglas, who plays Chief, and Rekha Sharma, who plays Tori, who, by the way, do you remember all the way back in season 1, I said there was an episode of Battlestar Galactica that Tamo Penniket, who plays Carl Agathon, was on, and then like a random person was also on that episode of the podcast with him. It was Rekha Sharma. I was like, if I say that now, whenever she shows up on the show, Mike's gonna be like, okay, so she's got to be important. She's a Cylon.
Why did they book? Did they just not think they'd make it through the whole series? They're like, we gotta talk with one of these Cylons.
No, because they were recording back to back, and so she was going to be the guest on the next episode, just so they had another guest who was from the show, and she just like tagged along, I guess, and she like barely talks on it at all. But Aaron Douglas tells the story of how he found out that he was one of the final 5. He says, we shot these episodes in December. This is what he says as of May 2020. We shot these episodes in December. I was over at Michael Reimer's house the September before. Michael Reimer, writer, director on the show. I saw a bunch of papers lying around that I wasn't supposed to be looking at, and they were outlines for all the episodes up until the end of the season. We were shooting 9 or 10 at the time that I saw them. I pretended to go to the bathroom, and I took the papers, and I started combing through them looking for Tyrell. Reimer catches me, and he's freaked, and he says, "You aren't supposed to see that. You can't say anything to anybody." So for the next 3 to 4 months, Aaron Douglas says, I can't tell anyone. I can't tell Truco. I can't tell Reka. I can't tell Hogan. I can't bring it up to anyone. David, Ron, anybody. So finally, a few days before we start filming the finale, they bring me these pages that explain things, and they tell us all one by one, don't say anything to anybody. And so Ron explained to me and assuaged a lot of fears about it that I had. He said, trust me. And it got me to trust him. He was absolutely right. I didn't like it at first. You're taking this everyman character, this beloved character, and you're making him the symbol of evil. Now I think about it, and I think there's no one that expresses the humanity of the Sylons better than Chief and Ty. I quite like it now. So that's how Aaron Douglas found out. He had months to be like, oh.
I mean, he got to go through the 5 stages of grief, right? As opposed to Michael Hogan, who just went straight to anger.
Mike, he was much like you and I have been in our lives as entertainment journalists. He was under embargo on the cast announcement. He was not allowed to confirm nor deny.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's like he went out onto set and learned the secrets and had to sit on that for many months without telling anybody. Do they have any like filmed footage of the table read? Because I would imagine that puts like the Game of Thrones table read video to shame.
Not that I'm aware.
I just imagine Michael Hogan like throwing the script on the ground and walking out.
Yeah, I don't think that exists. But I'm trying to find out where if I can find anything about Michael Hogan's basic rage quit that he had, and I don't have it as a source right in front of me. I do have from Rekha Sharma. Rekha Sharma saying, "I didn't find out until I read the script. Edward James Olmos was getting my goat in the hair and makeup trailer and giving me the business. And he says, 'Did you read the recent pages? You better pull up your bootstraps there, little lady. You're going for a ride.'"
Oh, that's how Edward James Olmos is William Adama, right? It's like this becomes abundantly clear. That's his version of bringing the cat, like pull up your bootstraps, little lady.
And so Reka had a very different reaction than Michael Hogan and Aaron Douglas. She said, "I read it over the weekend. I screamed like a little kid. I was so excited. I didn't know. No one knew except Aaron, clearly. I wondered maybe was it a chip implanted in me just to make me think I was a Sylon? I didn't find out in any special meeting like Aaron said. I literally found out 5 minutes before as we were walking across the parking lot with Reimer before we shot the scene, and that it was 100% real. I was a Sylon. At least that's how I remember it. Didn't find out until they were not just until she read the script, but didn't find out for sure until they were 5 minutes away from shooting the scene."
Well, was she afraid that they'd be like, Mulligan, actually, you're not a Cylon.
I don't know.
You can stay behind right now. We're doing
You can
3.
understand why Tori, the actress who would play Tori, would be very excited because as we've been observing, and I've been like trying to like gut check you a couple of times along the way here, like, what do you think of Tori? Just like to see like where you're at with her, because to use your phrasing, bit of a nothing burger, I think, is what you would like assign to Tori. And I do think, let me just like rearrange the Bone Thugs and Harmony and give Sam Anders the bone, because he has the most fracking of the members
Good
of
Lord,
this group.
Yeah, that man is throwing it in like it's a pyramid ball.
And I'll throw the and at Tori because she really is like egg her. And I think that's to me when I like took some space after watching this the very first time, which my experience was I had one of these 4 spoiled for me in advance because I had made the grave error watching this for the first time on my own, looking some stuff up about Battlestar Galactica, even in the late 2000s internet. And I had already at this point decided that my favorite character was Colonel Ty.
Oh, I thought you were going to Google like, oh, where have I seen her before? Battlestar Galactica Tori.
No.
Oh, man.
Colonel Ty. And
Wow.
like when he's revealed to be a Sylon, it's like, no. So that's the one I knew. And that was tough. That was like finding out the big spoiler from Final Fantasy VII before it happened when I was a kid. This was a rough one for me. But when I found out about Chief and Anders and Tori, I think maybe I knew about Chief too. I can't remember. But I didn't know about Anders. I certainly didn't know about Tori. And I think when I thought about it a little bit more, I was like, the exciting prospects here are like, say what you want about Anders, but Anders, Chief, and Ty are established characters. And what's exciting is like, how are they going to like reconcile their humanity with this and like their backstory with this? Ty allegedly best friends with Bill Adama for years, fought in the first Cylon War. Chief talks about like his super religious parents, things like this. Sam was, again, whatever you want to say about him, I think as you've been talking yourself into maybe this is a little more interesting than you thought at first blush. Not only has he been fighting Cylons his entire run on Battlestar Galactica, but before that, he's like a celebrity. He's a superstar athlete. This is like LeBron's a Cylon, you know, like this is like, you know, this is Tom Brady's a Cylon. Like
some people would say that the man was playing into his 40s.
It's a really big deal. By the way, I just updated Brendan Fitzpatrick on, I told the team behind the curtain, we're a little bit off format for this one. Sorry guys. And I said that Mike exploded when I told him that Tori doesn't count. And he says, look, he took Tori off and made it Romo. Sorry, bro. Themselves the breaks. So that's Fitzy's reaction here live on the pod. But with Tori, we really don't know much. And so the prospects there, I think, are pretty interesting of like, okay, bit of a blank slate, like a character who we ostensibly know, but really don't know a lot about, like, how is this going to live with her? I remember thinking that was a pretty interesting possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, it really is a blank slate. What worries me is that there's only one more season to do it. You know, that's what I'm really intrigued by, is that we're going to have a lot of masters to serve in this final season, especially with how it ends from, like, again, we're definitely not putting the cart before the horse. Like, this is the horse. This is a big old thoroughbred of a twist. But we also get this big return of Starbuck and the revelation of, like, Earth is real and it's only a short distance away. And that's assumingly our end game. So I'll be intrigued to see how all of this is going to get balanced out. I mean, we love Lost. 6th season, maybe not its strongest, partially because they kind of felt like they had to both set up new things and also kind of tie old things off, not the character. Going back to Chief, I mean, I love this so much. And not just because this is like the rare source of validation I get in my life, but it brings so much even more meaning to what happened in the last finale, which is the conversation with him and Brother Cavill, where this
go back and revisit it. Pretty amazing.
This parfait, Josh, it's just layers upon layers, where first it's, okay, this is a guy telling, you know, being very blunt to Tyrole's face, being like, well, you're definitely not a Cylon because I didn't see you at the meetings, and you think that you're one. And then we think, okay, so now they're both not Cylons. Chief's been talked out of it. Then the reveal is, actually, Brother Cavill is a Cylon, and he was just kind of messing with Chief's head. But then there's another layer to this, which is that they actually were both Cylons, but, and this is my assumption, Brother Cavill did not know that, because the big thing about the Final Five is that, except for Deanna, that one time, nobody knows the identities of them. So that's just a pure final layer of deliciousness upon that interaction, is the fact that as much as Cavill thought he was just effing around, fracking around with Chief's head, like, he was much more truthful than he thought he was.
Yeah. I think I said at the time that I think about this scene a lot, that I think about the Chief and Cavill scene a lot. And this is a big part of why, because like, it just makes it so delicious on the rewatch, as you can imagine. You know, the Chief and Boomer stuff is really compelling on the rewatch.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense if you're Cylon Frog God. You're like, all right, listen, the whole Hera thing, half is good. Maybe we should just throw a couple Cylons together.
Should we try on our own first? Yeah, before we go to the surrogate. I think that stuff is very, very interesting.
And I imagine that is going to be point 1A for Chief's character in season 4. As I think he is going to confide in Athena and be like, hey, what's it like when you found out that you were a Cylon? Cool. Yeah, hey, shut the door for a second here. Listen, off screen, I had to confide in a really big secret for a long time. Now I'm offloading that onto you, Athena. You're the new Aaron Douglas.
You're the new Aaron Douglas. Okay, so anything else you want to talk through with Chief specifically as far as the Cylon reveal?
I mean,
it certainly makes like the Eye of Jupiter stuff make a lot more sense. I did not want to walk you away from your Chief predictions at all throughout the season, because I felt like as long as you were looking at Chief, you probably weren't looking at Ty. You know, I wanted to make sure there was at least one major surprise here.
I'll give the show major kudos. I thought, okay, we'll have one person from like the human uprising represented, but I don't think all three of them would be all Cylon. So I just thought it was going to be Chief. I mean, it also gives a lot of interesting perspectives. And I talked about this as well at the time behind like the Dirty Hands episode of like, again, whether or not he was acting upon his Cylon whims or not, the fact that he was so belligerently pushing against the powers that be, as Romo Lampion will say in Secret Scene, the aristocracy of the people like Roslin and Adama. Again, it could have been him speaking out of the kindness of his blue-collar heart. Could be a little bit of that Cylon programming saying resist humanity at all turns. So as much as I love Ty, I honestly think Tyrell might be the one I'm most excited about. It might partially be because of the fact that it's something I had thought about for a long time. And now that that's finally been confirmed, it's like, okay, let's see how it delivers now that it's finally happening.
So we've talked a good bit about Tori. Anything else you want to talk about on the Tori front with her?
I mean, there was a fun scene here in the CIC, right? And I guess this is where her role is going to kind of be cemented, at least for the time being, is that Ty is going to approach Adama and be like, I'm with you, I'm good. And then Tori just kind of looks around and goes, me too. I'm the same for you.
I'm also on the show in a Cylon.
And so I think that's where a lot of the intrigue is going to come in. Besides, to your point, just getting to explore her as a character is the fact that she is the right-hand woman to Roslin. And if we face another end of season 1 Boomer situation where like the Cylon programming overwrites her and she's programmed to plan out an assassination of the president, she is the easiest person to get to her.
Yeah, I think when you think about who, we've got 4 of the 5 final Cylons identified. And if you think about these 4, you've got Tori, who, as you were mentioning, is like positioned right next to the president. You've got Ty, who is positioned right next to the Admiral. You've got Chief, who is chiefly responsible for getting all of the Vipers and Raptors up into the air.
Oh, maybe if Chief goes a different way, joins up with the Cylons, we could get Chief Lee Adama by the end of this.
And you've got Anders, without whom nobody stands a chance at getting pregnant.
He's got the most virile sperm. Move over, Hilo. I also was wondering about like what his position, because he's back on the big G, he's in the running for, he's like helping Celix at the bar. Was it the whole thing that Lee like purposely put him on another ship? Was it just like due to the death of Starbuck and him breaking his leg, Lee's like, I'm just going to do you a solid and keep you on the ship.
Sorry, guy. Whatever you got to do. Anything you got to do, man. Whatever you got to do. I think let the Sam Anders reveal live with you for a little bit, because I think when you do like when you face like he's a confirmed Cylon. He was a celebrity on Caprica. He is a resistance fighter the entire time we've met him. And then I do think the other compelling thing about him is he is closely positioned with Starbuck, who is without question a huge deal that we have to talk about very, very soon. So let the thoughts on Sam percolate a little bit. I think I think that there's more there to chew on for sure. Anything you want to get into with Ty? Because I feel like he's probably the one we've talked about the least.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about
just, like, the surprise of it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this guy seemed to be at least a little bit on the path to recovery after his like embarrassing incident on the stand. But like, would not be surprised if season 4 opens with him in a pile of his own puke with several empty bottles around him. If there's anything to drive him back to the drink, it's this idea of like, yeah, you're a Cylon and you also killed your wife. Like, God, what a terrible thing that this guy. And the argument that's going to make Lee, really come through at the 11th hour to get Baltar acquitted is this idea of like, good people can do bad things to get the outcome that they feel like is desired. That, Ty said time and time again over the course of that first part of the season, like, I'll blow up all the police cadets. I'll kill my wife, whatever it takes to get that end result. And it's like, what if the end result was that it was actually working against the thing that you are? That's really got to be an absolute mind app. But I loved, again, this is a man of war. This is somebody who is able to just think on his feet and default into a mode, fittingly speaking, for a mechanical man. And so I liked, and it felt very fitting of the character that his first response to this life-changing, game-changing revelation is when he hears the klaxon. He says, my name is Saltai. I'm an officer in the Colonial Fleet. Whatever else I am, whatever else it means, that's the man I want to be. And if I die today, that's the man I'll be. So the question of identity is something that's always been at the forefront of Battlestar Galactica, whether or not you are a Cylon. And what I'm very interested to look back on as well is the scene between him and Caprica 6, where Ty's definitely part of, the Adama side of things, which is like, let's call it an it. It's not even a human. We barely give it the time of day. he has been, understandably so, one of the most like anti-Cylon hires up that we've had in this series. And so now looking back on the scene in particular with like him and Caprica 6, I find incredibly intriguing. And similar to what I was talking about with Chief and Athena, I would not be surprised if he pays a visit to her again. And she's like, what, are you going to hit me again? He's like, no, I'm going to hit you with some news. I'm one of you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that the show, I think it's good for you to pick that up. Like the show has done some work of putting those characters together at this point, right? So they've got some shared history already.
And not to mention, like, in the moment, Head Baltar, when he talks about, oh, he's lost something, his wife. I thought that was just a bit of like Mr. Robot-esque social engineering of like trying to pick up on body language and saying, oh, someone hurt you, what's going on? But now there's a non-zero chance that like if she's picking up frequencies, tuning the radio station away from all along the watchtower, maybe Head Baltar, going back to a theory we had very early on, like could be a representation of the Sylon frog god, whatever's on Earth, being like, sort of being like the Tony Hale character in Viva, being like, oh, this is Saltai. He killed his wife on New Caprica.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I'm trying to think of what else in the terms of the Cylon reveals that I want to make sure we hit.
What was your first reaction when you heard all along the watchtower?
I was confused as hell. Confused as hell. And like part of me was sort of like, this is a little goofy. Was sort of my first reaction.
I will say, like, it did not take away from the
goofiest
severity.
part is when they start saying the lyrics.
Yes, it really is. That's when they're like, first, well, it did unlock it for me because I couldn't nail down the tune. And so I was like, okay, I thought it was just some random, I was thinking, is this the shape of things to come? Because we'll talk a lot about the Opera House. Like, is this something from Bear McCreary's music? And then when they start speaking the lyrics, I was like, okay, this feels like an episode of Glee. There's some
stuff that's littered throughout. Like I think like Ty at one point, does he say there's got to be some way out of here? Like
so that's how another big moment for me was that Tyrell says this when he's like, and I was like, oh, that's what Ty said. Okay, could this be a key piece of linking language? Not even thinking about the fact that that is a lyric to a Bob Dylan song.
Yeah. So I found it to be goofy at the time. Now all this time later, I have extraordinary nostalgia for it, and and I know things about the final season of the show. And right now I'm loving it because I think it's activated you in some kind of way. I was going to ask you at one point, like, what do you think it means? And I think you've already laid out what you think it means. You think it's like Cylon occupied Earth, blasting that shit out.
Yeah, it's this idea of like, this is a place where the watchtower got taken down. And, we could be so simple as to say, who is the Joker? Who is the trickster? From a trickster perspective, we can certainly talk about the Cylons as sort of tricking people into believing that they are one of their own, only to find out that they're not. You could argue humanity are the tricksters because they were the ones that created them and made them believe that they have equal rights, only to put them underneath them. So, it's a very interesting duality, not duality. And I'll be intrigued to see if we literalize that. Again, I have lost season 6 on the brain. And what I think I'm most intrigued by, Josh, is obviously season 6. It started in the finale of season 5, but season 6 really opened up a can of worms in terms of the mythos of the show, right? It really introduced us to Jacob and the Man in Black as these two equal yet oppositional forces in the heart of the island. I'm really intrigued to see if we're going to go in that direction for season 4. And who knows, we might have like the final of the final 5, the head of the Cylons versus like apparently someone that may have metaphysically pulled Starbuck out of the brink of an explosion and said like, you are my envoy now, go get the fleet.
Let's talk about Starbuck. A lot of excitement for this. She's gone, but not forgotten for long by the show.
And now I understand why they didn't have the funeral.
Katie Sackhoff's name is removed from the credits, and then it's like, haha, joke's on you. Here she is. And so she comes back a lot sooner than I think you thought. You said Starbuck. This is one of your predictions that you made. The final 2 predictions that you'd made about the finale was 1, another big time jump, a major event where some of the cast is thinned. That didn't happen. You said Starbuck is dead, but Katie Sackhoff will be seen on the show again, but not in the season 3 finale. we do see her in the season 3 finale. She shows up right around the time we get the final 4 identified. She shows back up. She says, I've been to Earth. Dry land is not a myth. I've seen it. I don't know why I Russell Hansed her. But here she is back in the mix at that exact same time. And the questions of like, how, why, are very much up in the air. So talk me through all of it from your POV, the return of Starbuck, what it means, what it meant for what Lee observed, at least, to be like, the person who believes in her the most, who would want her to be alive the most, basically, of anyone being like, there's nothing to save. She's gone. I saw it. What does all of this mean for you?
It's really mixed at this moment. And I guess this is the advantage and disadvantage of me having only finished the episode a couple of hours ago, because, I mean, this show meets you where you are, Josh. Let's go into a little bit of a discussion about another prestige TV show that is on at this moment. And I will avoid naming names, but
sure,
at the time we're talking, just a week ago, aired an episode where it brutally, suddenly, shockingly killed off a main character. And there is a lot of discussion whose character's name was also removed from the opening credits as to like how we would feel about bringing that character back, albeit through flashbacks, because I don't think there's any earthly beings that
hard to undo that. Hard to undo.
Yeah, we're gonna resurrect that character, or at least make him look good enough to put him back on camera. But I feel like when that was done, there's meaning to it, that character is a ghost, that spirit still exists. And so they theoretically are still on the show. They're represented through the actions that our characters take, even if they aren't physically there. And so to see her here, first off, the confoundment comes from the fact that I still don't know if this is like Starbuck. Like Occam's razor, which is weird because it's the most convoluted explanation, could be like, as she was about to get pulled, because remember, she was the one that was sort of much like Lee himself, like led into this random nebula, led down into this storm, and then had a Leo Ben Kenobi here be like, it's okay, you can go now. And so one rationale makes me feel like the Jacob-like figure from Earth, one of these prophets, like literally transported her in that moment, was like, boop, okay, you're out of here. Instant transmission. Now you're arriving on Earth. I'm going to tell you everything. You have to go get them. So on the one hand, this could be Kara Thrace is literally alive, which like that might be the explanation that I like less, just because that seems, I mean, again, Josh, you and I talked last season 6. I expressed how I was not a fan of the Heart of the Island stuff. I feel like that was a little too woo-woo for me in a show that, even though it had polar bears on islands, felt like it had a very distinctive tone to it. And this didn't necessarily feel like a part of that. I do feel like if Starbuck was like saved Deus Ex Machina and she is like in a corporeal form in a viper, did they save the viper as well? Like that thing exploded. That would hold a lot less water to me than like her being a spirit.
Yeah.
That her being this sort of like miasmic form of representing this metaphysical identity that's like, Lee, I've moved on and I can help you do so as well. I thought for a second that Lee Adama might die. I had like a brief instant, because we'll talk about it. Best episode of Lee Adama on the series, bar none. Like,
wow. This is also in an episode where he outs Rosalind's cancer return.
Had it in the first half, not gonna lie, but I mean, gives not only his best performance of the series, but I think one of the most important moments of the series, honestly, in my opinion, in that speech on the stand. And so I thought for a second, like, well, he doesn't really know, like, he doesn't really have anywhere else to go. Baltar says as much too, so like, he's just gonna fly in a Viper, and maybe we see a similar experience here. But when Starbuck shows up alongside him, obviously it's a big what? She's alive. And so my hope is that, like, her death does have some permanence, in that, like, maybe she's like, I can't move on from Earth, like, this is something that I have to do. I'm now sort of a devout representative and acolyte, if you will, of these people on Earth who have saved my spirit and taught me all these things so I can impart them onto others. That's a really cool idea, and goes back to the prophecy that Leo Ben gave Starbuck, several episodes ago, as to the importance that she plays. So that's my hope at this moment. I think there are two directions we can go in right now. I would prefer the metaphysical of she actually did die, but this is like some sort of spiritual afterlife version of her as sort of projected, if you will, by her presence on Earth, rather than just, no, Starbuck didn't die. She's back again and she's totally fine.
Right.
That rings a little more hollow to me.
Yeah. It's notable to me that there is a fairly obvious third possibility that I feel like you did not bring up.
What, the hallucination?
No. We just got 4 Sylons confirmed.
I don't know. I don't know how I would feel about Starbuck being a Sylon.
Okay.
You know, like, I mean, it makes sense from Anders' perspective, right? It's like, Anders, copulate with all Cylons around you. We need a purebred Cylon baby.
Seek out Trisha Helfer. Go boom boom with Boomer. Get lawless with Lucy.
Listen, you've got 12 to work through. We don't.
You can also try it with Aaron Doyle. Like, see what's up.
Simon's here. He swings both ways.
Simon says, "Do me."
I don't know how I would feel about that. Maybe it's just because I'm in the wake of still trying to chew through, like, what does specifically a tie reveal speak to about his character. I can understand if a Starbuck reveal would happen, because that would be two sides of the same coin, right? Like, these are two people who both hate each other yet understood each other the most in terms of how they wallow in each other's misery, belligerently so. But I feel like that ground's also kind of covered with him too. And I love this idea of, if there are these equal oppositional forces of the Cylons on Earth and the humans on Earth that are trying to sort of like recruit people for their veritable chess pieces, I think it's more of a fun idea to have like Starbuck now serve as the messenger on behalf of the humans who haven't done a lot of that, as opposed to just, here's another Sylon and he's going to trick Lee because Lee's in his feels right now.
Right.
So I'll say definitely a third option. The one I least want to happen.
I think there was some question among the listenership of what you would think about Starbuck's return, because it is very clear, and I'm not gonna. There's no reason to play coy. 4 of the 5 final Cylons have been confirmed on the show. Starbuck comes back at the exact same time. Yeah. Is she a Sylon? Is up in the air right now. But you did not read it as, and that's the 5th. And I think that was a question that some people were having, is like, would Mike just automatically ID Starbuck as a Sylon?
No, because I feel like,
in fact, it seems like you're just chewing on the possibility right now.
Yeah, it didn't really go through my head, just because I don't know, because I feel like they wanted to save the big reveal of the final Sylon, the final of the final 5 for season 4. So this wouldn't really feel like much of a reveal then, if it's like, oh, and it was Starbuck too. We just didn't say it. We sort of implied it. Like, I feel like the final Sylon has to be like, not to say it's somebody important, but I feel like it's got to be like a big character. It's got to be a big jaw-dropping moment. And I don't know, maybe it would be with Starbuck, because now we had this whole like, oh, she died, but now she's alive again. I mean, that'd be pretty wild if she's like, come on, Lee, come back with me. Come to my resurrection ship. I mean, my regular spaceship.
Sure. Okay. Well, let me ask you before we move on to the trial of Baltar. If not Starbuck, who is the final Sylon to be revealed on this show?
Okay, so I will throw out, I mean, I can always go with my blanket statement of someone we have not met yet.
Okay.
Though, again, that worked to aplomb with like bringing in Titus Welliver, right? Of like, okay, now he's the big bad guy. We don't know who he is, but he's the one that you all need to fear. So let me have some fun and go with a named character here. I will go with Laura Roslin.
Okay, Laura Roslin.
Because I'm thinking about this shared dream, hallucination, projection, what have you, where it's like, okay, who was in this vision together? It was Athena, confirmed Sylon. It was Caprica 6, confirmed Sylon. And unless Laura Roslin's just been like, she could be another envoy, maybe from the beings at Earth. She could just be doing way too much of that Kamala. Yeah. Or it could be that like, hey, the reason why you are all having these communal visions is because you're a Sylon as well.
Okay, let's put Laura Roslin on the board as Mike Bloom's 5th and final of the final 5 Cylons to be revealed. let's talk about the trial of Gaius
Yeah.
Baltar, because we really haven't even had a chance to talk about it, because there's just so much else that
Yeah.
happened here.
This was theoretically the main event. Like 80% of the plot was dedicated to this and this only.
This we've got a really some deep feedback from Nick W, public
Ooh.
defender in New York, who writes in and says, "I know most of the focus for this episode is the fallout of the big Sylon reveals, but for me, the heart of the finale is all about the acquittal of Gaius Baltar. There isn't a more important moment in the series. Going back to the premiere, the central thesis of BSG is examining why humanity deserves to survive. Acquitting Baltar is the why. Consider what a full circle moment this is from the beginning of the season. The Circle was conducting sham trials, then throwing people out airlocks. That is humanity's low point. By giving Baltar a fair trial and following through on his acquittal, the fleet proves they're more than just executing anyone they see as bad. I first watched BSG when I was in law school, deciding what to do with my career. I'm not saying I became a public defender because of Lee, but it's hard to overlook the impact this kind of arc had on me. The hero here isn't the cop or the soldier or the prosecutor. It's the guy that stands up for what's right, even when it means standing next to society's outcast. It's very inspiring. BSG was written as a commentary on the war on terror, and the tie-ins to this trial are easy to see, but this all feels especially relevant now with due process under assault. The question of the American legal system is currently grappling with the question it's grappling with is whether the government can banish someone simply by declaring them other. It's exactly the question the fleet grapples with in Baltar's trial. Some big questions have a way of just coming back over and over again. The Ben behind the curtain, New Zealand public lawyer, says maybe the outcome of this trial is a fair one for Baltar, but the process hardly feels fair. Rosalind's private medical diagnosis becomes public. Ty is induced into admitting he killed his wife. Gaeta, who has until now perhaps been the person with the most integrity on the show, feels pressured into perjuring himself. Lampkin uses any and every advantage his wiles can bring him, pushing truth and ethics to their very limits. Is this really what fairness looks like? It's hard for me to see the criminal system we have as one where justice is dispensed. Judges bring their biases, juries bring their biases, lawyers bring their biases, witnesses bring their biases. Innocent people are frequently dragged through the mud. It's particularly bad for vulnerable victims like children, people of color, victims of sexual violence, violence in the household. Lampkin represents what is wrong with the system and why it's far from fair, but is about manipulation of perception and being compelling, getting people to see things your way. I don't believe the adversarial trial system is fair at all. It's part of why I've spent my years, my career in public service, where I can influence the state of the law. I would love the law to shift perceptions of what is fair away from adversarial approaches and to more restorative methods of justice, a place even Lee was beginning to head by the end of his speech. As long as things remain the way they are, people like Nick, Ben says, are essential to making sure that that the vulnerable really do get a voice and are not walked over. So some interesting perspectives on the trial from one of our public lawyers behind the curtain, as well as one of them in the hatch with us as a hatchling.
Yeah, so let's get into this because Lee's final message, and something that Ben talks about specifically as well, is this idea of, and Lampkin talked about this in the last episode, and I dove into why this was such a confusing statement at first, but I think such an intriguing one at the same time, is this idea of like law being a study of human behavior over than necessarily like what is good and what is not, because it all depends on not only your own perspective of worldview, but like what the punishment should then be for that crime. You know, like, and that's what this all comes down to is, look, I don't disagree, and I have so much admiration for what Lampkin was able to do. I mean, this guy shows why he is the best in the business by just talking about improvisation, just throwing out all these ideas and really making us a true kangaroo court. Like, yes, they call for a mistrial because of the Adama stuff, but like, honestly, they could have done it without anything of like, why is this a mistrial? Well, the president did get coerced to saying that she has cancer again, and I'm pretty sure this guy perjured himself, and this guy killed his wife, and we made him cry. So, like, maybe we should just start all over again with all of this. But the thing that Lampkin keeps repeating that ultimately I think gets Baltar acquitted is this idea of, like, Gaius Baltar is a guilty man. Is he guilty of the crime that he is being tried for? Which is, as was reminded a couple times, genocide. Which is this idea that he is responsible for the occupation of New Caprica and these 5,000 lives that the, I don't know, Ali Frack Beal or whatever her name was, the prosecution ends up laying out on this big whiteboard. That was the thing that he is technically being tried for. But as we'll get talked about, it then becomes less of, okay, when you're boiling it down to the Samantha semantics, like, he technically didn't do this, but does it matter? Was this just a front to get your pound of flesh from Gaius Baltar for all the stuff that he's capable of? And that's what makes this so incredibly lovingly complicated, Josh, is like, Gaius Baltar is a pretty shitty person, but like, technically he's not, like, again, look at the Gata moment. Like, Gata is fabricating something that did not happen. Baltar had a gun pointed to his head where he, through tears, had to sign that execution. He pushed back against it. As was talked about a few times, like, yes, Baltar is saddled with the idea of capitulating to the Sylons, but like, was the alternative saying no and then getting the planet blown up instantly, killing those thousands of people? And so it's a great reminder of how deliciously complicated these characters are, and that, like, they are all capable of doing incredibly bad things. Liadama goes through a laundry list of what many people, himself included, have done, the crimes that they have broken. But what has been one of the most prevailing ideas, be it Sylon, be it human, does the end justify the means?
Yeah.
Does it matter what you do, what rules you infract, what laws you break? Exactly. If at the end you get the result you want, if you get a success, if you win, does it matter what you do in battle if you win the war in the end? And I think bringing that concept from the battlefield to the courtroom, right? Lee's even going to cite
history is written by the winners stuff.
Yeah. And Lee even cites it, though. We go back to the first regular episode of the series with the whole Olympic carrier stuff. That's a great example of it, right? Where it's like, well, there might be Cylons aboard here, so it's better for the good of humanity if we kill all these civilians rather than, try to rescue them and possibly endanger everybody. That's what Lee's going to talk about as well. I didn't want to jump back to New Caprica because I thought we were going to be putting the current state of humanity in danger. Every decision that is made from when you're in a position in power has benefits, has drawbacks, and most likely puts lives on the line. Yeah. And so the fact that they were really able to break this down to, yes, of course, a lot of bad stuff happened under Gaius Baltar, but why are we, throwing the rule book at him when all the things that we have done have gotten shrugged off as just necessary for the final course of action? And again, I love the fact that it's followed up by Baltar being so incredibly smug and turning to the press and being like, yes, and now I all believe this trial was a sham. We all agree about this, right? As he's, then complimenting his lawyers. I always believed in you, despite the fact that I was yelling, literally
on the immediate other side, he's a shitbag.
Literally yelling at Lampkin when Lampkin goes to a mistrial. Baltar's on the stand going, what? It's so great that, again, the point to be made is not that Gaius Baltar is a good person. It comes down to, and again, this is what Lee is going to stand on, is it right for him to be pilloried for something that he technically may not have done?
Right. I think that this actually segues us very nicely into our MVPs and LVPs of the episode, Mike, because for this one, since it's a finale, I want us to have 3 shots in both categories. So 3 MVPs for each of us, 3 LVPs for each of us. My MVPs are largely represented in the courtroom side of things. And I put on Baltar for winning. I put Romo Lampkin on for winning. And I left space with my third pick because I knew that you would put Liadama on there. And my only question was, how much Liadama would you end up putting on here with 3 spots to dole them out?
So I put 2 in here. Listen, I relented. It could have been all 3, but like, and maybe I'll put this in the LVPs as well. He does get an infraction for just a major boner in the first half on part 1, where he's like, hey, Laura Roslin, clearly you're inebriated. There's Kamala extract in your tea. And she's like, yes, that's because I still have cancer.
Because I've had the cancer.
Oh, no. To the point where Dwala, like, walks out on him. It's like, yeah,
like, that was messed up.
That's a really interesting scene as well, because she is very much from the mentality of like, why are you defending a system that is broken? And Lee kind of takes that mentality and runs with it in the statement he gives, right? Of like, the system is broken. Like, I am not necessarily defending everything that's going down at this point the rules and regulations to help this evil man stay out of jail. I am defending what should happen, which is the feeling that this guy did not necessarily do what he was charged with. And so I think that was another, besides, being yet another thing to break up Duala and Lee for the time being, which also, whether or not Starbuck is corporeal or not, might also throw a wrench into the works of that thing.
Sure. Okay, so you're getting some Lee on the board here in the MVP section, and a little bit of Lampkin as well.
Yeah, I mean, Lampkin, again, credit where credit is
Great
freaking
character.
due.
Great
character. I hope this is not we see the last we see.
Like
of
you,
him.
you were getting it last time, but like you get him in these 2 episodes. It's like this is like bringing Michael Emerson on to Lost. It has that energy. It's not maybe as impactful as
that would be if Romo Lampkin was indeed a Cylon, it would be that equivalent, right? Of like, here's a new character. Oh wait, he's the head of the evil people.
Just you still don't know, but the energy he brings here is just phenomenal. How can you not give Lampkin a shout? This gets us into my final MVP point, which gets me into my 3 LVP points.
Ooh.
I'm going to represent the 4 Sylon reveals here. I think it might not be good news for any of them that they're Sylons. This could be bad for all of them. There is one character who benefits from it the most because now they have a story, and that's Tori.
You can't spell story without Tori.
So I will give Tori the MVP point, and then Ty, Chief, and Anders are all getting LVP'd by me here, despite the fact that I love the reveal so much. It's so devastating for these guys. Like, it's just like and the way that we arc this season, this was something that on my rewatch of BSG to like sort of like scout ahead and like, is this worth us doing on Down the Hatch? When I got to the beginning of season 3 and was reminded, because I don't know the show as well as I know Lost, that they are the 3 figureheads of the Resistance. It's like, this is so juicy. This is so good.
And I wonder, maybe
great about face for them.
We can talk about this maybe in like a season 3 wrap-up show or something. Do we know at what point it was in the conversation that they would be Cylons?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't think that there was ever any. I don't think that this has ever been a show where, much like Lindelof and Cuse, were like, we know the whole thing,
Right.
much to their chagrin. I think that it was fairly clear that certain things were being invented on the go, and certain things were not all planned out. I think it was much more of like, George R. R. Martin, for all of his foibles, describes himself as a gardener, not an architect in a storytelling kind of sense. I think this is more like that. And I don't remember or know offhand where it was decided who the final 5 would be. But it was not like a from word go. That these were the characters. No.
This wasn't like, all right, we've got 12 faces up on the board. How do we get here?
For instance, my guess, and like we talked about it when he was written off the show, Billy probably would have been a Cylon, would have been my guess. And so like, I think like, man, they told me that they had some stuff for me, and it's like, yeah, if you just hung around, Tori wouldn't exist.
Yeah, but listen, I think in terms of the demographic makeup, I think it was needed. Not to say Cylons need to go woke, but like nice that it's not all white men that are the Cylons being revealed.
For sure. Okay, those are my 3 LVPs. I see that you're giving one to Ty and one to Anders as well, but so not to Chief.
I'm giving one to Ty because like he made a real embarrassment out of himself in multiple ways. Like he gets decked by Caprica 6, who like I would have had a mind to maybe give a point to if I had another MVP point, because she does. Well, we could talk about this in the wrap up. Like a bit of an odd season for Trisha Helfer. Like she barely gets anything. This is probably the finale is probably the most content she's had in some time, but like she gives it right back to him. He clearly is in a bad state of affairs where like he allows a lot of the prosecution's arguments to get undone, which is sort of one of the dominoes to lead to Adama making his final decision. Yeah, exactly. To acquit Gaius Baltar. So it's a bad look for him in general. And I gave one to Anders because of this. When he is fracking Tori.
Which, by the way, Michael Trucco and Rekha Sharma on Galacticast were like, totally forgot that happened.
Okay, well,
so
right, so
I don't know. That does not speak kindly of either of them as lovers in the set.
Well, I think one of the secret scenes actually before the Cylon reveal is like literally Tori approaching Sam at the bar and being like, we can't do this anymore. So maybe they squash that before anything. But Anders, after copulating with Tori, is revealed that despite the fact that for the umpteenth time they are doing it in the communal bunks, this dude locked everybody out of their rooms simultaneously. He's like opening up the vault, and freaking Celix comes in and is like, "Hey, why'd you lock the door?" And then he just looks at Tori and they're like, "Huh, it's a what? Like you should be lucky you're even here. You got demoted and sent off to some random vessel. You came back because Leah Dama felt bad because your wife died, and so now you're like, I'm gonna commandeer the entire common room for myself. There's a suck on the door. That means don't come a knocking." Like, so many people live here, and you're locking them out of their livelihood just so you could get your rocks off. How rude! That honestly might be the worst infringement he made against humanity as a Cylon. He has had maybe the most impact out of the four because of that, but such bad bro code. I gotta dock him for it.
I get that. I do want to just observe the phrase "doing it in the communal bunks" sounds so dirty.
Right?
You do not want to get done.
Well, there's even talk between earlier in the episode with Racetrack and was it Skulls who are like staking out, and she's basically like, "Yeah, you jerk it in the bunks, don't you?" It's like, there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah, where else are we to jerk it?
Where are you gonna go? Baltar's lab, and he got
do
caught.
in the corner. We don't have any.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's nowhere to go. We all have urges, and that's fine. Just don't then proceed to get push everyone else out of where they're living. It's the ultimate form of the roommate locking your door when you're trying to come in after a long night because they're with somebody. Like, where do you go from there? It's a small ship.
Yeah. All right, your final LVP point.
So that is going to go to Laura Roslin. I was debating, had Anders not undergone so many infractions, I would probably give it to Adama because, he was one of the people that came in really beating the drum, which arguably was used against him at a certain point of I can't believe we're even going through with this. Gaius Baltar should be strung up. We don't even need this trial right now. I think ultimately he does make the right decision in, again, to Ben's point, it's a little bit of a sham overall, but through the pretenses of the trial, which was Gaius Baltar guilty of genocide, he ends up going through with the decision. I love one of the many moments about that Lee speech as well as Lee looking his dad dead in the eye and basically being like, "We ran away," really hammering home that point of, don't use this as your excuse to atone for your guilt about the fact that you left people for as long as you did, being like, well, it's your fault because all these people died under your watch, when really it's the guilt that he feels. And this is coming from a guy who saddled himself with the blame of the first Cylon invasion by being like, nope, I was the one responsible for it. So it makes sense that he would do it. I ultimately gave it to Laura Roslin because she is far and away the person beating the drum the most as to Gaius Baltar must die, essentially. He's got to go. She's the one that brings up the genocide charge. We have, again, Ali Frackbeal even talking with Tori a little bit about, these are the tactics I'm trying to take. And it's like, no, we're going down the route of genocide. And it was a bad route at the end of the day. Not only that, not her fault, but, she does get outed that she has cancer. Though I will say, maybe my laugh out loud moment of the episode, Josh, is when Tori obviously comes in a bit too aggro in this press conference, says, vultures pick over another carcass, and, Roslin dismisses her like, "Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Let me take a question." And she goes, "How long do you have to live?" She goes, "How long do you have to live, Karen?" I just
Karen.
love the 1-2 punch of F you, Karen.
So good.
It takes a lot of patience to bite your tongue. So it's definitely a softer LVP, and also I really love checking in with the Lee and Roslin relationship, which again has lied a bit dormant, but did have a lot of periods of development, especially in the season 1 finale. Mary McDonald's performance of just whispering to Lee as he approaches her on the stand, please don't do this. God, it was so open and so vulnerable, and it also has a fun double meaning in that, you think in the moment it's God, don't spill this out. This is going to ruin me. But there's also a little bit of sure you want to do this? Because I could just hit you back with something as well. Are you sure you want to get into the mud with me and wrestle?
Yeah. I would not want to, I would lose a mud wrestling competition with President Roslin very easily. This leaves us with some final MVP and LVP updates. I think mostly due to like stagnation. Athena ends up winning season 3 with 8
It's like
points.
the Luigi wins by doing nothing.
She's got like very little to do here in the finale. And because Baltar wins the trial and got a point from me, and because Lee has the episode that he has, these two guys who were like really in danger of the LVP spot, they are no longer in that danger. Of course, as always, the Sylons get -5. They are the LVP of the season. But if it's a named character who's the LVP of the season, I almost gave her a point, and I ultimately gave it to Tori instead to get all 4 of the 4 Sylon confirmed reveals. And I almost gave Starbuck an MVP point for being back. But I chose not to because this way she gets to be the LVP of the season. Probably deserves it. She died. She was mean a lot of the time. And otherwise it would have been like a whole bunch of ties. It would have been like her,
Bulldog.
Kelly, Socrates, Socrates, Dr. Robert, Ellen.
Yeah, no,
let's
it's interesting.
identify it.
Because I feel like both sort of represent season 3 in general, which again, we can talk a bit more about in a future podcast, which is like season 3, which surprised me a bit. Probably the most uneven season of BSG that we have experienced.
I think so too.
Far.
I think so too. The highs are unbelievable and the lows are just like, what are we doing?
And so it
like
almost
the lows are so mid that it's like, oh, this is getting like kind of mid.
And so, and at least from a season 1 perspective, it was a lot of like, well, they're still figuring themselves out. They're still trying to figure out how to write episodes. It's like season 3 you almost have no excuse, right? Of like, you know the plot at this point, you know these characters. And so on the one hand, Starbuck being the LVP, the named one, does make sense because she did a lot of unscrupulous behavior. She is the definition of hurt people. And she was one of the characters that was like the most emotionally thrown around in all of these random situations. But then it also kind of makes sense to have it be a tie between all of these other random characters too, of like Bulldog, who just appeared in, and Dr. Robert, who appeared in these like really not good one-off episodes and ended up becoming just the big villain of it. Even someone like Kelly, who like pops back up for no particular reason, only to be the big bad. I think both kind of represent facets of season 3 equally, and how it didn't work for me as much or more than seasons 1 and 2 did.
All right, Mike. Well, speaking of ties, this brings us into our Sylon versus the Fleet category, which we're constantly trying to measure who has won, the Sylons or the Fleet. And I know they only show up at the end, but I think the Sylons, this is a very decisive victory.
How could it not be? I mean, by default, it is sort of the biggest win they have of the season, considering that it's been a while since they've had a big W on the board, but like 4 people are Sylons, including the XO of the Fleet. That's a pretty damn big win.
The president's right-hand woman, the engineer, as we observed, the guy who's fracking everybody. So like a huge win for Sylon.
Johnny Appleseed.
Sammy Appleseed. Oh God.
Oh God. I don't even want to know.
So if we're it sounds like we're on the same page. Sylons for sure get this. Then that means the Sylons and the Fleet end up tied at 5 apiece for season 3. There are 3 Colonel ties and 6 NAs. The NAs win season 3.
NAs won. Look at this. Welcome to the coming out party for the NAs this season. It was their debut.
Unless we're not being fair, and Crossroads ought to be on here twice because it's a part 1 and a part 2. In which case, I think the Sylons probably still get it.
Well, because I'm thinking about who would win part 1 then, because the Sylons reveals have not been made, but it's not like there would be
a sham trial is happening.
Exactly. Guys, Baltar is already protesting it, but again,
the secret sleeper agents are turning on.
But like, we'll talk to Anders about being turned on. Sure. But yeah, I mean, again, what a better representation of this season, right? That the one that won a plurality of who won in this war is like, there wasn't enough to really count in either direction.
I think to your point, I think a very fair point, an uneven season. I think the most uneven season we've gotten so far.
Quite literally, it was odd, which is uneven.
Yeah, correct, for sure. Okay, rating the episode, which of course everyone can do, down the hatch, rhap@gmail.com. That's down the hatch, rhap@gmail.com. Rate each episode from a scale of 0 to 4.2. This is a 4.2 episode of Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, I mean,
such a 4.2 that
none.
we had to like completely eradicate our normal like beat by beat and just like talk through Mike's like immediate red-faced explosive
I
reaction.
got really red. You all should
You
check out the
did.
video.
Beat red, baby.
There were veins bulging
Yeah,
out, which
veins.
proves I'm a human.
Flames
It's
on the side of my face.
exactly. It was blood pumping through these lovely pustules
Yes.
across my neck. No, I mean, what an incredible way to finish off this season. Again, say what you want to about the course that we plotted over the past 20 episodes, but first off, the trial absolutely lived up to expectations and served as a way to not only wrap up that storyline, not only introduce new wrinkles into the storyline, like Laura Roslin's freaking cancer coming back, but also serve as just a fantastic reminder as to what the lifeblood of this series is, which is, to Nick's point, like, if we want to save humanity, what does being human mean? And I think part of that involves a sense of justice and a sense of what is right, what is wrong, and how do you dole out punishment for those who are quote unquote wrong. So I thought it was such like, listen, if it's a good Leah Dama episode, I was also going to grade on a curve. And again, while the first half was not great, I thought this was the shining beacon for Leah Dama, the Leakin in this series so far. I think star turn from Lampkin, and I hope this is not the last time we see them. And again, that's all to say that I didn't even talk about the fact that there's 4 freaking Sylons that were introduced, and they were all pre-existing characters, and they range from the okay to the huh to oh my god, this is game-changing.
Yeah.
And so I think the finale does the perfect job any finale should, which is simultaneously taking some of the major plot points and character beats in for a landing, while also then setting up a lot of great tantalizing stuff still in the air, including a perhaps disembodied Starbuck.
Deleted scenes from Crossroads. Anything really good here, Mike?
Yeah, so there's a fun one that alludes to something that I mentioned earlier, but in part 1, and I guess this is, I don't know, either before the trial or maybe after day 1 of the trial, the courtroom's empty. Lee and Lampkin are sitting around, and Lee asks Lampkin, you know he's guilty, right? And Lampkin replies, he's guilty of something. So am I. So are you. And so, again, that's also, we talk about this a lot with like something like Better Call Saul, right? Of like, being a defense attorney for someone you know is guilty, and how do you sort of wrestle with that own sense of morality. But this is where he talks about how this trial, it's not about the law, it's about a family, your family, and how it's not talking about the Adamas, but the emerging aristocracy, which, again, when we talk about the show Meeting You Where You Are, is a very interesting idea that has been talked about a bit, but kind of has been cemented by someone like Lampkin, who is sort of a man of the people, even if he's defending someone that the crowd really hates. But this idea of like, yes, society is reestablishing itself, or so they claim to be. As Lee says, like, we are not a society at this point. We're not a civilization. And of course, there's going to be a hierarchy. And we see that people are kind of stratifying themselves and, feeling like, well, I'm the president, and therefore, if I want this person to be executed, they will be executed, trial be damned. So I thought that was a really interesting perspective between the two characters. And again, Lampkin kind of bringing his own POV as to what he was kind of surveying behind everything. I mentioned before, we have an extension of like the how long do you have to live, Karen?
Yeah.
See, that was a fantastic cutoff. But then Rosalind goes into the speech basically being like, none of us know when we're going to die. I've been down this road before, a la the Ali Frackbeal theme song. I've gotten cancer. I faced a firing squad. Whenever the gods are done with me, that's when they're going to be done with me. And then the other big thing is that Tori, again, goes to Anders at Joe's bar. They kind of cut
Can't do this anymore.
Yeah, what is interesting is that she does in this scene say, we're all guilty of something.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Lampkin said that directly. I couldn't remember, but like, it does make me think, all right, if Ty and Tyrell were quoting the same thing, maybe there's a non-zero chance that Tori was taking a page out of the book of Rollo Lampkin. And we just get a bit of a fill-in scene where after the shared like waking dream that Rosalind and Athena both have in sickbay, where they're both like screaming at the top of their lungs, Duck Cuddle's like, what the hell is going on? This isn't the pit. They have a discussion where Athena says, okay, you call it a dream. It's actually more of a projection. And then she explains sort of the mythos of what a projection is. And Rosalind's certainly reacting like, oh no, I hope this doesn't mean what I think it means.
Yeah. There's also the alternate scene of the ending of the episode. There's an alternate version that was shot where Lee comes back to his quarters and Starbuck is there and gives like the same message that she does at the end of the episode. What we get in the episode is so much better.
I don't want that. Again, I don't want it to be a runner of like, oh, Lee's haunted by the visage of Starbuck. It's more so implied. One more behind the scenes thing that I wanted to mention. This was at the request of the Ben behind the curtain. So we have sitting at the head of the tribunal, really serving as the mouthpiece, even though Adama is sort of like the hammer, the most important part, is a character named Captain Doyle Franks. She's the head judge for the trial, and she is played by Susan Hogan.
Yes,
Michael Hogan.
Michael Hogan's wife, who I think that I'd mentioned this very early on in the podcast, that Michael Hogan, in the run of the podcast, had suffered a serious health crisis, I think back in 2020, and has been, working his way out of it with Susan Hogan being the chief person, A, helping him, and B, providing updates to the community. They had a GoFundMe that I don't know if it's still open and people can still donate to, but the GoFundMe updates, they come through every once in a while, and there's always such like so much love between the two of them that is expressed, and like updates on Michael's progress and the things that he is still like really excited about doing. So very, very cool to see her here in this episode, and a little bit of like, we're talking about the ways that she's supportive of her husband now. Also, great to have her on set for a couple of episodes that were apparently not Michael Hogan's favorite to do.
Exactly. Maybe that was like a sort of a salve, right? Of like, oh shit, he's really pissed off. Good thing your wife's an actor. We could just bring her on for a guest role. And also, must be very interesting. Obviously, you get into your character as an actor, but to have Michael Hogan be on the stand with his real life wife in the room, talking tearfully about killing his on-screen wife. Must have been just a real mind F.
And Ouroboros here. There were 3 jumps across the 2-part finale. There are 43 jumps total across Battlestar Galactica. There are 19 fracks across the 2-part finale. Colonel Ty and Lee Ty for the most.
Yeah,
say that 5 times fast.
I mean, it's interesting when he says, when Lee says on the stand, it's a fracked up system. You're like, oh yeah, I guess that is the F word in BSG. And just imagine being in a trial and someone says it's an effed up system under oath.
Thanks to this episode, Lee is the fracking leader of season 3. He fracked 3 more times than Starbuck, who missed out on a couple of episodes worth of fracking. There are 385 fracks so far. Woo. Starbuck is still well ahead of everybody, 81 to 49. Lee is the second closest.
And now she's back in the picture, baby.
Mike, I'm not going to ask you to re-rank or readjust your Sylon model rankings because I think that could be fun for when we come back.
My head would just be... Because I'm still having to wrap my head around it. And then obviously with the reveals, like, are we including all 4 in it at once?
I think that it's like the reveal of the final 4 counts as like the reveal of the final 4.
I agree. I don't think I can't.
No. We're not going to do this.
Hairs of like Andrews versus
like
Ty.
No. So with that being said, I do think we could quickly do your Sylon reveal rankings probably, which is Simon in the back, then Aaron, then Leoben, then Deanna, then Brother Cavill, then Caprica 6. Followed by Boomer at the top. Where do you fit the final 4 reveal?
I'm honestly trying to figure out whether I want it above or below 6. Like, Boomer is still the gold standard to me because that was the game changer, right? Yeah. That came right at the end of the miniseries, truly taught us that our enemy sleeps among us. It can be anybody, and everybody, of course, bears a lot of fruit that we're seeing to this day. The 6th one was fun, right? That is the guy in the old age makeup at the space station getting caressed by her, only for it to be revealed that she is a Sylon. So there's more. It's almost like the Flash versus like the substance to it, like the fact that we know these characters and the big reveal there. Does it more or less make up for the fact that 6? It was more so a like, hey, this is the first thing we see. We don't know a lot about them, but it's a big deal. This is going to be controversial, and we always can adjust these. I think I'm going to put it... I will put it below 6.
Okay.
For now. Because I think 6's reveal represents so much as well, right? Like, remember, the first scene was these big toasters walking in, and we think that's the Sylons. And it turns out that, no, she's a Sylon. She's taken our forms.
The reveal of her sets up what the show is. Like,
exactly. So I think that's really tough to beat, even though I think this is probably the better scene overall and weighs a lot more to the point that I'm still having things hash out and run through my head all these hours later. I just think number 1 and 2 are so important to what Battlestar Galactica is that they're going to be very tough to touch. But I will also say the reveal of the final Sylon, I think, will be very tough to beat the final 4 because it was done in such an epic fashion.
We will find out when season 4 of Battlestar Galactica gets underway here on Down the Hatch. We are, as is our wont, we're going to take a planned hiatus now. We appreciate all of your patience over the last few weeks in the real time as we worked through some flight maintenance of our own.
I was going to say, I had to make some jumps. It's okay. Any emotional volatility I showed only on this podcast, not behind the scenes. But
we reunited, and we're all good. So when we do come back next, I think what we will be doing is we will watch Battlestar Galactica Razor. That is the first of the movies that we can talk about. And we will, in that same podcast, I think, look back at season 3 and look ahead a little bit towards season 4. When that podcast drops, it's going to be a little bit of time from now. So you stay subscribed to the feed. You won't miss it once it does drop. Mike, before we close out, do you have any final season 4 final season predictions you want to make right this second, right now?
Ooh, I mean, I reserve the judgment to kind of sit on that for a bit before I lay into what I'm sure we could go in and make a handful of my own big predictions for season 4, much like I did for this finale. I'll tease something here. I think the prophecy comes true and Laura Roslin dies.
Okay.
I think that thing that was prognosticated from the beginning, right? There will be a leader who is very sick, who will, not make it to the end to usher her people over to this new civilization. I have no disbelief that that prophecy will not come true. And I think especially with her cancer returning, I think it is a big sign to indicate that she will not be with us, much to Bill Adama's detriment.
Even as a Sylon.
I mean, listen, Sylons can die as well. There's no resurrection ship nearby.
And if she dies before she and Bill get the chance to frack?
My heart would shatter. That'd be so sad. I mean, that's such a cute little banter today, right? Of she called him and she's like, "Get me out of bed, talk dirty to me, give me your Sergeant
wow.
routine."
They're phone fracking.
We talked last time about them fracking in grief, and that seems to at least not be the case right now. Though who knows? For all we know, Josh, given the way season 3 went, it might be a case where we have another time jump going into season 4. It's oh yeah, they had this brief dalliance that we're only going to mention in the penultimate episode of the series.
If that happens, it counts for you. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course.
We give a little, we get a little.
That's it. All right. Well, we got a lot today. We got 4 Sylons confirmed. We got the 5th Bob Sylon revealed as well. Keep those sunglasses handy, Mike. You never know when we're going to need them next. We need them right now, it turns out. And we need all of you hatchlings who make this podcast possible. We are so grateful to all of you. We are so grateful to our team behind the curtain. Ben and
my
Brendan.
God. Yes. I mean, again, that Jimi Hendrix Dylan stuff, I'm in awe.
It's been so fun.
You guys killed it. And that's what makes this thing so fun is for first timers like myself, we take the journey on sort of one path. You guys are like Starbuck parallel, being I've been through this before. It'll be fine. Yeah. Exactly. So I'm excited to see where the path to Earth lies as you be our guide there. And thank you all so much. Apologies if I was all over the place.
That's how we love to do it.
Podcast. But
it's a big series of reveals. I don't think that this was going to happen any other way. I really felt strongly we just needed to go where your energy was going to take us.
Oh, and it took us in a lot of different places.
Yes,
so I'm excited to continue that energy through Razor, through season 4. Josh, also wild that this is the first kind of last regular season finale that we're talking through. The next time we'll talk about an ending is the ending of the series. Kind of wild. And so I think, again, baked into some of those predictions have to be kind of looking ahead as to what the end game, what the shape of things to come is with BSG.
We'll do final series predictions for sure when we meet next. So that'll be whenever it's going to be. In the meantime, hit up Mike at a Mike Bloom type on the internet. I'm at Round Howard. Hit us up in our emails, down the hatch, RHAP at gmail.com. If you're not in the Discord yet, I'll get you in there. If you want to be in there, just let us know. That's it. Time to frack off, Mike.
Yeah, check out all the other stuff here on We Know Scripted. We're doing Last of Us. We're doing Andor as well. Those will be going even in the interim while DTH is briefly jumping away. And plenty more to come. There's a lot of great TV to talk about, Josh, even though I'm happy to always briefly take a brief step back into the past and talk about this show that's new to me. Not to you, but
new to
God,
you.
I'm happy to be back. I'm sad that, we're
love
going to be
it.
taking a brief hiatus at this moment, but what a way to finish off season 3 of not only this show, but also this very podcast.
Damn straight. All right, folks. We'll be back. Bye.